If you'd asked me a year ago what my life looked like, I would have said it was stable, comfortable, even. My name's David, and I live in a suburb just outside of Houston. Life wasn't flashy, but it was dependable. I ran a small, family-owned carpentry business that had been passed down from my grandfather. Nothing fancy, kitchen cabinets, flooring, the occasional full remodel, but we had a loyal customer base, and I was proud of the work we did. My wife, Laura, worked at a local consulting firm. She was always the more career-oriented one between us, sharp as a tack, and always 5 steps ahead of everyone in the room. We met in college and started dating not long after graduation. Back then, everything felt easy. We were both young, ambitious, and believed that love could overcome anything. For a while, that was true. We'd been together for over a decade, married for 7 of those years. No kids yet, something we had talked about, pushed off, talked about again, and then never really revisited. I didn't mind. I figured when the time was right, we'd know. Looking back now, maybe that was the first warning sign, the way we started letting decisions drift instead of making them together. Still, I believed in the partnership we had. I always did. I handled most things at home, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I cooked most nights. I liked it. I did the laundry, made sure the house was in order, paid the bills on time. Laura had long days, long meetings, and late-night calls. I knew her work was demanding, and I wanted to ease that burden. That's what partners do, right? They balance each other out. But in the last year, something started to shift. Laura became distant, not in a dramatic soap opera way, just subtly, incrementally. She'd come home later and later, blaming deadlines or client dinners. She stopped joining me in the kitchen like she used to. We'd eat in silence, her scrolling through emails on her phone while I stared at whatever was on TV. At first, I chalked it up to stress. I told myself she was going through a rough patch. Work can do that to a person. Then there were the missed date nights. We had this tradition. Fridays were our nights, no matter what. Even if it was just takeout and a movie, we made time. But somewhere along the way, those Fridays vanished. She'd reschedule. Forget. One time she said she had to fly to Dallas last minute for a client meeting and didn't even kiss me goodbye. I remember just standing in the doorway, coffee in hand, watching the tail lights disappear down the driveway. I should have said something then. I should have asked, but I didn't. I didn't want to be that guy, the clingy, insecure husband who needed constant reassurance. I figured the best thing I could do was be steady. Be her rock. Keep the house running. Keep dinner hot when she came home. Keep pretending like we were okay, because maybe, eventually, we would be again. Our friends saw us as the couple that works. You know, the one that had it figured out. We hosted game nights, helped other couples move into new homes, gave relationship advice like we were some kind of experts. I played along, smiled in photos, laughed at the right jokes. From the outside, we looked picture perfect. But behind the front door, our lives were drifting in different directions. I remember one evening specifically, a Thursday. Laura called to say she'd be working late again. I made her favorite chicken marsala and waited. She got home around 9:30. No apology, no explanation, just a tired thanks as she dropped her bag by the door and headed upstairs. I didn't say anything. I just sat there, watching the steam rise from the untouched plate on the table. That's when I realized I'd eaten dinner alone every night that week. And yet, I still didn't push. I still told myself it would pass. Then came the night that everything shifted, the night she brought her colleagues over. I thought it would be like any other evening, just with a few extra bodies in the house. She told me she wanted to celebrate wrapping up a project. I made some snacks, poured drinks, and stayed in the background like I usually did when she had work people over. I didn't know it then, but that night would be the beginning of the unraveling. It's funny how you can spend years thinking you know someone, believing you're building something together, only to realize you've been living in 2 separate worlds the whole time. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. I just didn't want to see them. Maybe I was too trusting, or maybe I just loved her too much to admit what was really going on. But the truth has a way of sneaking up on you, even when you're doing everything you can hold the pieces together. And that night, I heard something I'll never be able to unhear. The night started like any other time Laura had people over from work. I greeted a few familiar faces, mostly her colleagues from the firm. and then excused myself to the kitchen. I never liked being the center of attention, especially around her work crowd. They were all sharp suits, smart talk, and inside jokes about clients and contracts that I didn't really get. So I stayed in my lane, played host, made sure everyone had drinks, and kept the cheese tray full. The kitchen sits just off the living room, separated by one of those half walls with a countertop bar on top. From where I stood, I could hear them talking, laughing, glasses clinking. I wasn't trying to listen. Honestly, I didn't care much about their office politics or who got promoted. But then I heard my name. That's what made me pause. It was Laura's voice. "He's basically a stay-at-home husband at this point," she said, laughing. Someone else chuckled, one of her female coworkers, I think, and chimed in, "You mean your personal chef, maid, and house manager, all in one?" And then Laura said it, the sentence that hit me like a punch to the gut. "Exactly. I mean, I don't even have to do anything at home. He just takes care of it all. It's convenient, honestly." They all laughed, like it was some harmless joke. Convenient. That word echoed in my head like a siren. I froze mid-stir, spoon still in the pot. I felt like I had suddenly been dropped into someone else's life, like I was watching a scene from a movie and forgot I was the character on screen. My stomach turned. It wasn't just what she said. It was how she said it. So casual, so flippant, like I was a subscription service she didn't have to think twice about. There was no trace of gratitude in her voice. No kindness. Just dismissal. Like all the years I'd spent holding our life together had amounted to a convenient background presence she didn't even have to acknowledge. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Someone else joked, "Sounds like you've got it made, Laura." And she replied, "Right? He's sweet, though. Just a little too comfortable, you know? Sometimes I feel like I've got a golden retriever waiting at home." More laughter. I gripped the edge of the counter. My jaw clenched so hard I thought I'd crack a tooth. I wasn't angry yet. What I felt in that moment was something deeper, something colder, like a part of me had just quietly died without anyone noticing. I wasn't a man to her anymore. I was a household appliance with feelings she didn't have to consider. I backed away from the stove, wiped my hands on a towel, and walked silently up the stairs. I didn't say a word, didn't slam any doors. I just moved like a ghost, slow and silent, afraid that if I made a single sound, everything would shatter. In our bedroom, I sat down on the edge of the bed. The laughter downstairs carried faintly through the walls, muted but constant. I stared at the closet door, at her side of the dresser, at the picture frame on the nightstand, one from our wedding day. Her smile in that photo used to mean something. Now it looked unfamiliar, like it belonged to someone else. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel sad. I felt clear, like a fog had finally lifted. I saw it then, how one-sided things had become, how she used to ask me about my day, but now barely register my presence, how I would ask her if she needed anything, and she'd wave me off like a well-trained assistant. I thought I was being supportive. I thought I was giving her space. But now I realized I was being taken for granted, and she didn't even feel bad about it. She laughed about it. Something inside me changed that night. It was like a light switch flipped, and I suddenly saw everything with new eyes. The late nights, the unexplained trips, the way she avoided physical closeness like it was an inconvenience. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the ground beneath me had already started to crack. When the guests finally left, I pretended to be asleep. She came into the bedroom quietly, probably assuming I had gone to bed hours ago. I kept my breathing steady, my back turned toward her, the blankets pulled up high. She didn't say anything, just undressed, slid under the covers, and scrolled on her phone until she drifted off. The room was dark, but my mind was wide awake. I laid there for hours, staring at the ceiling, counting the number of years we'd been together, replaying memories like a mental slideshow, trying to pinpoint the exact moment when things shifted. But the truth is, it doesn't usually happen all at once. It's a slow erosion. Little moments that don't feel like much at the time, until one day you realize the foundation's gone and the house is just pretending to stand. That night, I didn't feel the need to fight. I didn't feel the urge to confront her. I just lay there in a strange, eerie calm, understanding something I'd never let myself consider before. Laura didn't love me the way I loved her. She loved what I did for her. She loved the version of me that kept her world running smoothly without asking for anything in return. But the real me? The man underneath all the helpful gestures? She didn't see him anymore, and maybe she hadn't for a long time. The next morning, I woke up before the sun like I usually did. Old habit from years of early job sites and full calendars. But that morning felt different. I sat on the edge of the bed, the room still dark, and listened to the soft sound of Laura breathing behind me. Peaceful, like nothing had happened. But something had. Something fundamental inside me had quietly shifted, and there was no going back. I stood up, walked down the hall, and made my way to the kitchen like I did every day. I made coffee, not because I wanted any, but because that's what I always did. Brew a pot before she woke up, leave her a cup on the counter the way she liked it. 1 sugar, splash of almond milk, lid on top. But when I reached for her mug, I stopped. I just stared at it. And for the first time in years, I asked myself why. Why was I still doing this? Why was I going through the same routine for someone who couldn't even say thank you? Someone who called me convenient in front of a room full of strangers. I set the mug back down. I didn't make her coffee. I didn't toast her bagel. I didn't prep her lunch or wipe down the counters or refill the filter water pitcher like I usually did before leaving the house. I just didn't. And it felt weird at first. Like I was forgetting something important. Like I was breaking some unspoken rule that had held our home together for years. But it also felt freeing. I took my own mug to the back porch and sat down under the pale morning light. The air was crisp for once, a break from the heavy Houston humidity, and I let myself breathe it in. I didn't check my phone. I didn't look at the clock. I just sat there in the silence, staring at the yard I'd spent years tending to, realizing I'd spent more time nurturing that grass than nurturing myself. And that was the moment it clicked. I had built my entire routine, my whole world, around being her support system. I had made myself so useful, so essential to her comfort, that I'd completely disappeared in the process. And for what? A passing mention in a joke. A throwaway line about how sweet. I was a background character in her story. That realization settled into my chest like a heavy stone. When Laura finally came downstairs, still half asleep and wrapped in her robe, she moved straight toward the kitchen like clockwork. She reached for the coffee mug that wasn't there and frowned, opening the cabinet and glancing over at me through the doorway. I didn't say anything. I just took another sip of my coffee and kept staring at the trees. "You didn't make any?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. "Didn't feel like it," I said flatly. She blinked at me, surprised. But she didn't push. She made herself a cup and went about her routine like nothing was different. But everything was. That day, I didn't go to the shop. I called my foreman and told him I needed a personal day. I went to a coffee shop across town, one I used to go to before life got too busy. I sat there for hours with a book I didn't read, just watching people come and go. Smiling. Living. I forgot what that felt like. Around noon, I wandered into a gym I hadn't stepped foot in since my late 20s. I didn't sign up right away. I just asked for a tour. The girl behind the counter smiled and showed me around. And when she asked if I was looking for something specific, I told her honestly, no, just trying to get back to myself. She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. That night, I came home to Laura sitting on the couch, her laptop open, papers spread out across the coffee table. She looked up when I walked in. "Hey," she said, "you didn't go to work?" "Nope," I replied, setting my keys down. She waited for more, but I didn't offer it. After a second, she went back to her screen. I didn't make dinner. I didn't ask about her day. I didn't clean up the mess of work documents she'd left scattered around the house like breadcrumbs. Instead, I heated up a frozen meal, took it upstairs, and ate in the bedroom while watching an old documentary on mountain climbing, something I used to be obsessed with before everything got too routine. It felt small, insignificant maybe, but it was a beginning. Over the next few days, I kept at it. I stopped making her breakfast. I stopped folding her laundry. I stopped picking up her dry cleaning or fixing the little things around the house she never even noticed were broken. And in that stillness, I started noticing something else. She didn't know how to function without me. Not just practically, emotionally. There was a silence growing between us, an unfamiliar one. Before, our silence had been a tired, settled thing. The kind of quiet that comes from long years and too many responsibilities. But now it felt different. This silence had weight. Tension. Confusion. She noticed, but she didn't say anything. She would glance at the unmade bed and hesitate like she didn't quite know how to fix it. She'd open the fridge and stare, waiting for some kind of prepared meal to magically appear. And I watched her quietly, passively, as she tried to recalibrate. But I was no longer her safety net. And what shocked me most, I didn't feel guilty about it, not even a little. The days rolled on, and I stuck to my quiet rebellion. No shouting, no drama, just silence where there used to be servitude. I did things for myself and myself alone. Took long walks, started working out again, got a new haircut that didn't need her opinion. I even started sleeping better, like my mind was finally giving me permission to rest. Laura noticed. She didn't say anything directly, but I could feel it, the discomfort building in her. It was in the way she kept glancing at me when I'd scroll through my phone instead of asking about her day, or how she'd pause when she saw I'd left dishes in the sink. She'd never cleaned them herself before, but now she had no choice. At first, she tried to ignore it. Maybe she thought I was going through something temporary, some weird midlife moment I'd get over. But after 2 weeks of cold shoulders and passive stares, she finally broke the silence. "Is something going on with you?" she asked one night after dinner. Or rather, after I finished mine and she had to make her own. I looked up from my seat on the patio. "What do you mean? You've been distant, detached, like you don't care anymore." I took a sip of water and said calmly, "Maybe I just stopped pretending." Her face twisted in confusion, maybe even fear. Pretending what? That this is normal, that this is enough, that being taken for granted is okay. She stared at me, mouth slightly open, like she didn't recognize the man sitting across from her. And maybe she didn't. I wasn't the same husband who bent over backwards to keep the house perfect and her life running smoothly while asking for nothing in return. That man was done. That night, she tried to make dinner, burn the chicken, set off the smoke alarm. I watched her scramble around the kitchen, frustration written all over her face. She cursed under her breath when she spilled something, then glanced over at me, maybe expecting a joke or a helping hand. But I didn't move. I just watched. I could see the realization slowly dawn on her. This wasn't about a bad day or a rough patch. Something deeper had changed. The next morning, she tried to soften things. Brought me coffee, sat next to me on the couch while I was reading, touched my arm, said she'd been thinking about maybe taking a weekend trip together, just the two of us. I smiled politely and told her, "I'm already making plans that weekend." She blinked. "Oh, with who?" "Just me." And that's when the panic set in. She started asking more questions, bringing up our history, dropping little reminders of how long we'd been together, the vacations we'd taken, the house we built. She even dug up our wedding album and left it out on the table one evening, like it was some kind of emotional landmine I'd trip over. But it was too late. The thing about resentment is that once it takes root, it grows fast. And I'd been watering it with silence for a long time. Eventually, she couldn't take it anymore. One night, she cornered me in the hallway. "You're trying to punish me, aren't you?" she snapped. "Because of something I said that night with my coworkers? Is that what this is about?" I looked her dead in the eye. "It's not just what you said, Laura. It's what you showed me." Her face fell. "I didn't mean it that way." "You know I didn't." "I know exactly how you meant it," I said. "Because that's who you've become. You don't see me. You see what I do for you. That's all I am to you, a walking convenience." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't flinch. I had nothing left to give her. No more apologies for being hurt. No more excuses for her behavior. No more fixing what she kept breaking. The next day, I handed her the envelope. Divorce papers. She opened it slowly, like she already knew what was inside. Her hands trembled as she read the first page, her eyes scanning the familiar words. She looked up at me, voice cracking. "You're really doing this?" I nodded. "This isn't an argument, Laura. It's not a threat. It's a decision. But we can fix it," she whispered. "We could go to therapy. We could try again." I shook my head gently. "We had years to fix it. You just never thought anything was broken. And now it's too late." She stood there, stunned, like the ground had just shifted beneath her feet. And maybe it had, because for the first time, I wasn't holding her up. I wasn't cleaning her mess. I wasn't rescuing her from the consequences of her choices. I was walking away. When she moved out 2 weeks later, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't play sad music or call up friends to vent. I just sat in the same spot on the back porch where this all started, with a fresh cup of coffee and the sound of my own breath, steady and unbothered. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't pride. It was peace. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't someone's backup plan or housekeeper or emotional landfill. I was just me, and that was enough.